John, now we're live, man, and it is, man, such an good to see you. Good to see you again
Well,
and
Chris.
talk. We got to, get it we got introduced, I don't know if it was a month or 2 ago. It's been a little while, and, we've had to reschedule some things, so appreciate your flexibility, but,
Of
man, I'm
course.
so excited to have you on the Books for Guys podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here. One of my favorite subjects in the world. So
Yeah.
let's talk it up.
Let's talk it up. Well, John, you are you're I'm very interested in your background because you do a lot, and especially with Christian music and Christian artists, you do a lot of songwriting, singing, but you also speak and mentor. And I was laughing because I saw the book you've co-authored as well, and I got to say the title of it, Santa Claus is Melting on the Sand.
Yeah.
I started laughing at that, and I was like, all right, John's
Yeah.
doing all kinds of things.
Right there. Yeah. 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 Oh, gosh. How granular do you want me to get? How far back do we go here?
Well, I would like to know, John, just your story because I've done some research on you, and like everyone who's doing amazing things in the world, it's not always a smooth ride. And your story talks about that as well as doing some things, having some bumps along the way. And I would just love to learn more about that story and just kind of how you got started in your career, some of the struggles you went through, and what all you're using, how you're using that now to have an impact.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I'll try to do just like a high level version real quick. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, but I grew up in a very musical home. My mom and dad were bluegrass folk musicians back in Memphis, Tennessee, where I grew up, and they would play community centers. And my dad was in a Civil War reenactment band where they played banjos and did all the, limping along like you can imagine and doing the little diddle ding 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 ding. I don't know.
Banjo is my favorite instrument, by the way. I love bluegrass music.
I mean, the world's divided into two camps, people who love banjo and people who hate it. But no, I love banjo. My dad played everything. And he was really deeply influential in my life musically because he loved everything. He was just an audiophile. He just loved music. And we heard everything in our house from bluegrass to symphonic music. And so I grew up in the era of Janis Joplin, Jethro Tull, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, just all the crazy acid rock people. And I had a dramatic conversion experience at 18 years old. And I've spent my life doing Christian music and I had a dream of getting a song recorded one day. And the short story is I'm in my fifth decade now with over 500 songs recorded, and I've made records and I've traveled the world and I've worked in churches and I've been at two of the major Christian music companies as vice president of publishing. And so, God had a plan and gave me a desire, even as a child, that came to great fruition, as an adult. And now I'm in a season where I'm passing on that information on. I'm 187 years old now. So I'm passing on all that I've learned, my success and experience. And we have a full service company, a record label publishing company. We do coaching programs for songwriters. It's called Nashville Christian Songwriters. And we're in our 11th year. And we have a studio here in Berry Hill in Nashville. It's just an amazing thing. I mean, there were so many bumps, in the road. I mean, there have been times in these 11 years where, gosh, I had $1,000 worth of bills and 1,800 in the bank, but God's sustained us. It's just an amazing thing. But it's not all been, roses and lollipops. I mean, if you're going to be successful in business, takes a lot. And I know that, your podcast and emphasis is all about books and reading. And that's been a real key to my success.
Yeah. I love to hear that, and I like those stories, John, because I think everyone sees the highlight reel of everyone's lives, and so, when they go if they went to your website, they would see all the amazing things you're doing and all the things that you guys have done, but they wouldn't really see the behind the scenes where you're like, "How am I gonna pay the bills this month?"
Yeah.
Are we gonna survive and be able to continue what our mission, or are we gonna have to shut it down? And, I mean, those are legit stressful days. Talked to a lot of people who have gone through that, and they're like, "Hey, we're glad we did because we can share that story now and help
Yeah.
motivate others to keep pushing through the struggles they're going through." And so,
Yeah.
It's good that you can talk about too, like how important reading has had on you and learning and getting you to where you're at too. One question I've got for you, John, you talked about not growing up in a Christian household, but you've done all this Christian music now. What was kind of the turning point that, I don't know, flipped the switch or led you down that path in particular?
Well, I grew up in the turbulent 60s. I was 10 years old in 1968. We lived in Memphis, Tennessee. And I just, fell in with a bunch of hellions and, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And I was just, I say I was lost as a ball in high weeds. I didn't have any real anchor in life. And my parents loved us and, God bless them, may they rest in peace. But we didn't have a Christ-centered home and we didn't really have anything that was the glue in our family. Dad worked really hard, mom worked, and I was a latchkey kid back in those days, had a brother and two sisters, and we were just kind of scattered. And I was looking for some ways to belong and started doing a lot of drugs and alcohol. Alcohol was hard to get. I could get weed easier than I could get a beer back in those days. I wound up just really becoming an addict in a lot of ways. And a kid that I used to smoke a lot of weed with in high school was just a backslidden Baptist boy. And he got his life right with Jesus and got the youth group praying for his little lost friend, John Chisum. And I went on a youth trip with them, just oddly enough, and wound up just surrendering to Christ in a very, very dramatic way. And it was the first time, Chris, that I ever felt really loved. And I know my parents loved me. I know I'm not throwing shade, but it was a different kind of thing. I felt loved on the inside. And I don't know if your show is a Christian show necessarily, but it was a very real thing. And it really, and because I was musical, the first thing I wanted to do was write a song about Jesus and tell people, and I still want to do it. I'm writing a song today. I've already been writing a song this morning in the shower, and I've got a writing session after this podcast, and we're going to write about Jesus. And there's nothing better to me than that moment. I mean, it sustained me now for gosh, almost 50 years of just wanting to share in an unobtrusive way. When people are really gross about, shoving their particular faith down your throat. I don't like that. But it changed me and changed me forever. And it's what my whole company is built on. I have 5 employees. We have a global reach. And it's really all goes all the way back to that one moment when I suddenly realized that a divine being that I'd never really thought of, except maybe in some weird drug-induced coma. Yeah. It was better than all that. And it's sustained me to this day. So I guess that's really it. And there've been some ups and downs in that too. I mean, my Christian life has not been perfect, and we've hit some pretty big potholes falling out with churches and people that, I don't know. Sometimes we get it kind of backwards and we think that Jesus and the Bible are weapons and we use it against people instead of for people. And that drives me nuts. But I've hit some pretty hard moments, but God's brought me back, time and again, because and no matter what your particular faith structure or system might be, to me, if we don't have love flowing out of us, then it's not worth much to me. And so, anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go all evangelical on you there, but that's it. I mean, um,
No, I love that, John, and it sounds like, I mean, take the broader message here, you found your purpose, and it's sustained you, and it's kept your interest, and you've been able to be impactful with that purpose, and a lot of people are searching that out. It's not,
yeah,
people find it in different ways and different missions of what how they're able to give back and do good things. And you found yours through Christian music. And again, now you've hundreds of songs have been written and hundreds of messages put out there of positivity and love, like you said.
yeah.
So I definitely resonate with that approach and appreciate that. And so John, who are some of because I grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a pastor, and I've been around Christian music for a long time. Who are some of the artists you've been able to work with, and who's some of your favorite, I don't know, some of your favorite songs you put out there?
Yeah. Well, I stumbled into Nashville in 1983 to take a church job that fell through, and we had $40 and no place to live. And that was a pretty hard moment. But I was introduced through a mutual friend to Bill and Gloria Gaither and a guy named Gary McSpadden, and they were pioneers in the Christian music world, both in ministry and in songwriting, production, concertizing, and they were school teachers from Alexandria, Indiana. And they have written some of the greatest songs of the Christian faith, Because He Lives. There's just something about that name and so many more that are still just woven into the fabric of Christian hymnody. And they were starting a new little publishing company here in Nashville. And my mutual friend introduced me to them. They listened to a couple of pitiful little songs that I had written. And I don't know if God stopped up their ears or if they had pity on me or they saw some talent, but they signed me to a publishing contract and they started mentoring me. And I wrote I wound up getting a paper route, making $60 a week. We were just barely getting by, but I was able to come to Music Row every night and write songs at the publishing company, and they were reviewing my songs every week. They would listen to songs, and they were kind enough not to laugh, and they would just ask me questions like, "Well, this is nice, but who's gonna care about this in 100 years?" And so very, very influential, and I wound up placing 20 of my own songs in the first year. And so they hired me to be a publisher, and I didn't even know what a publisher was. But when you talk about people that I've admired and that have had an impact on me, I would have to start with them, Bill and Gloria and Gary McSpadden. And from there, iconic artists like Twyla Paris has been one of my most influential mentors from afar. I knew Twyla. She was at the record label that I was at, but her writing was so devotional and yet so commercial. And she would win songwriter and artist of the year over and over and over and over again in the 80s and 90s. And I wound up in the knees going to a company called Integrity Music and working with a guy named Don Moen. And Don, if you're into worship music, Don is iconic. He's not as well known in the United States, interestingly, for whatever reason, but he has millions of fans all over the world and has sold millions of worship albums from Integrity Music. And I was able to go and really spend 4 years under his leadership. And he taught me so much. I've traveled some in Europe with Don. He's huge in Singapore, Malaysia. He has to have bodyguards, when he goes places like that. And so those people have really been very influential for me. I love all kinds of music. I mean, when I was a child, Joni Mitchell, of course, and all kinds of rock and roll crazy head people. Yeah. And there's so many wonderful artists, Chris, even these days, Chris Tomlin and, Matt Maher. I was listening to Matt Maher on the way in. I'm working with a Catholic songwriter today. Matt Maher is Catholic. And we're doing some not liturgical music, but songs that would be more acoustic and appropriate in maybe a Catholic parish service. And so I just love the breadth of music. And again, I get that from my dad, just being able to appreciate all kinds of music and love what's great about any style of music.
Yeah,
I
love
don't,
that. I
I don't
definitely
know.
know who Chris Tomlin is. I grew up listening to him, so
Yeah.
big time familiar. Him, Stephen Curtis Chapman, him.
Right.
There's all kinds of artists that have been doing it a long time. It's pretty cool just to hear those names because I haven't I've moved away from family and I'm not as involved, I guess, as growing up listening to it on the radio every day. So these artists, I remember a lot of them, which is it's just really cool to hear you say they're Twyla. I remember my parents listening to her, and so it's just kind of taking me back a little bit.
Yeah, I had an album called Firm Foundation that came out 30 years ago with Integrity. And I was on a plane in Nigeria. I was leaving Lagos to come home. And I was sitting there and started chatting with this young lady beside me. And she asked what I was doing in Nigeria. And that album is wildly popular. in Nigeria, and I've been over there 5 or 6 times, and I never felt old until she asked me what I was doing there, and I said, "Well, I sang in some churches because I had an album that came out called Firm Foundation." And she said, "Oh my gosh, Firm Foundation? My parents love that album." It's like, "Okay, I'm old. All right, I'm old. That's okay, fine. I'm old." Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful to have anything, of value at this point in my life, but to be able to bring all these years, to benefit younger people. My whole staff, the oldest one is 37, and I get to download so much experience to them that would be hard to get, otherwise. And that legacy of songs and songwriting and in the age of AI, people put in a prompt and think they're songwriters, and it's like, no, honey, if you didn't write those words and that melody, you're just not a songwriter. So, but to be able to mentor and pass on what the Gaithers and Gary McSpadden and other people whose names you might not recognize, but poured into me. I have the privilege of doing that. And, to your point about books, they're just vital. I actually have 2 books that are edited and ready to release this year. And I have 400 titles in my Audible account. And if you could see my walls, I have hundreds and hundreds of books because they're just so important. I couldn't imagine a world without books.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wanna get to the book talk, John, but couple of things I caught on there. You're talking about people using AI to write songs, and I'm sitting there going like, "Yeah, there's no art to using AI to write music. There's nothing, I don't know, personal value or just that creativity that's lacking when you go that route." I think a lot of artists are saying that too, thankfully. They're saying, "Hey, this isn't real art that's being put out there or created." So that's, it's not a great thing. Um, I was gonna ask you 'cause you were talking about, like your employees and whatnot, and you brought up your coaching and mentorship part of the business, and you specifically said that's for artists, correct? Do you work with people who are non-music writers, or is your focus on people within the music industry?
Yeah, the focus really is songwriting and artist development because that's what I did for years at the 2 record companies. I was VP of publishing, but I also helped work with artists to develop their careers. So Nashville Christian Songwriters started, we're in our 11th year. And actually it was really kind of a weird thing. I'm not sure that deja vu is a biblical concept, but we found ourselves years later. I mean, in 1983, we came here to take that church job that fell through, and God opened up this whole music thing. But I came back. I'd been working at a church in the Midwest, and in 2015, came back and we had no job and no place to live. And it was kind of like that. I'd had a kind of a pretty bad ending with a church, and sadly, and didn't know what I was going to do. I was much older and just honestly, Chris, didn't know what we are going to do. And long story, very short, God inspired me to start Nashville Christian Songwriters. And it happened when a business coach was kicking me about sharing my publishing experience. And I didn't really think I wanted to do that. And I went home one day after talking to him and I was looking at URLs and I found Nashville Christian Songwriters. And I thought, there's no way this .com is available. That's just too cool of a name, right? And it was. And I bought it for $13.99. And I started learning how to do little webinars and teach people about songwriting. And I thought I was going to write a 2-hour video training thing, and it turned into a 12-hour training thing. And I've built our whole company, and now we have everything from, we do a lot of free stuff, our podcast, Song Revolution. We have 230 episodes, and we've been doing that since 2017. We have a lot of free resources. We do a thing called the One Song Challenge, which is $15, all the way up to a $30,000 artist development program. We have a record label. We have a publishing company. We have a beautiful state of the art studio here, a podcast studio. And so it's crazy. So, but we have all these training programs from group, one on one. We have a client in writing all week. I bring in songwriters to write with people for their church ministries or their own artistry. And yeah, we just kind of do it all. It's insane. It's my hair's on fire, I think.
No, I love it. I can hear your passion and excitement and just what you guys have been able to do and what you are doing. I mean, again, I can hear the purpose coming from your words and it's got me excited. I'm like, heck yeah, man, you're doing something awesome.
Hey, man, if you wanna learn about songwriting or record some songs, I know a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple more questions for you, John. I want you to talk about you mentioned you've got 2 books that you've been working on. What are those about and what's your mission behind those?
Well, our company, started, as I just explained, really focused in on songwriting because it all starts with the song. And I don't believe, even with AI, Chris, that people are gonna get tired of expressing themselves. We're working with 4 or 5 people that started writing with AI, but they got bored and they felt like it really wasn't expressing themselves, right? Their own heart for Jesus. I had an editor take my 12-hour video series that I was just describing, and she took the transcript and she created a whole book. It's called The Song Builder's Blueprint, and it's proven principles and insights that I've used my entire career. And I'm downloading that. But I also have a smaller book called God Gave Me a Song, Now What? Because that's what a million people have said to me, well, God gave me this song. Now what do I do with it? And so in that book, I explain how the music business typically works and how to take that song from an idea in your brain, in your heart, and how to get it out in a way that people can love it, get it recorded and get it released. So those are the 2 books. So they're not available just yet. They're edited, they're ready to go. I just haven't had a minute to get the cover and the layout and get them uploaded, but they're going to be available through NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com sometime this year. Yeah, so that's what that's about. We also have a documentary coming out about our company and my life, my 45 years of doing this, a documentarian who's worked with Franklin Graham and a bunch of other great people. He came and he did a beautiful job of capturing our story. So I'm excited about that as well.
Yeah, that is exciting. And when the books are released, we'll definitely spotlight them as well through Books for Guys. So that's exciting and something to look forward to. Yeah, you just got to
Yeah.
get the final touches done on them. It sounds like.
Yeah, they're ready to go. I just got to get them now out there.
Yeah. No, well, that's exciting, John. And so one final question for you, because we've been talking about just again the importance of books and reading and how impactful that's been on your life. I always ask people this because I'm always curious of book recommendations and what people are reading. But what's a book or two, John, that has had a big impact on you, either personally or professionally? And what's a book or two you like to recommend to others when asked?
Yeah, you know what? I think it depends on your interest because that's like what kind of music or what's your favorite song, right? Everybody's going to be different. And so, devotionally, I would say that there are some Catholic authors I love so much: Brennan Manning, Henry Nouwen, Frederick Buechner. There's a classic book I'll show you real quick. It's right here. If I'm giving away a book to inspire people, it's always this book. And Meister Eckhart was like in the 12th or 13th century. And this book is just astounding. If you have a poetic heart, if you have an artistic, creative heart or bent, or this is beautiful. Buy these in bulk and give them to clients and songwriters from from more of a business standpoint. I've got From Good to Great sitting right there, classic, business oriented book. I have so many people that I love, from theologians to Mo Bunnell's Give to Grow book, which is astounding. Wickman's Traction, which talks about how to gain traction in your business. And then there's a guy named Steve Chandler. He actually was on a different podcast that I have called All the Best, and reinventing yourself. And I believe that that's what I did 11 years ago when I came back to town, and we didn't know what we were going to do. And I found NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. I reinvented myself. And that if of all the books that I have read that have been the most useful for me, it was when I read that book, Chris, and I realized, hey, wait a minute, I'm not really stuck. I don't have to be the old version of John Chisum who can feel depressed and lost and angry and disenfranchised, which I kind of got in that way a little bit, deconstructed. It's like, I don't have to be that. I have a choice here. I can reinvent myself at this juncture in my life when I'm a little down on my luck, all that. I have a choice here. And I have to credit Steve Chandler and that book with so much of my success because it gave me a fresh perspective. It's like, wait a minute, I can get up out of the dirt here. I can brush myself off. I can go reinvent myself and I can be a blessing to people. And so God bless Steve and that book.
Love that. Yeah, and you mentioned it, everyone has different interests. That's why I always ask that question because I have so many
Yeah.
different backgrounds of people on here, and I'm always curious to know, like, what books have impacted them and what books
Uh,
like yourself, there's a lot of people that have, like, that book that they purchase and give away because it's meant so much to them.
yeah.
So it's really cool that you've got that as well, and you're very well-rounded in your reading. So I love just the different genres and different books that you recommend. But I can't let you off. I got one more question, John, because I gotta ask about your book about Santa Claus is melting on the sand.
Yeah. Let me
Tell the
grasp it.
story about that, because I'm very interested in that.
Well, it's a song and it's a book. It's also a book in motion. And so this story is a story of my co-writer, Bonnie Barbet. She and her family were literally vacationing on an island and it was pretty warm. And a Santa and Mrs. Claus literally came up on a kayak. This beautiful illustrations. And I mean, this really happened and to hand out
This
presents
is
for the
nonfiction book, everybody.
it's nonfiction. And Santa started melting down and he literally started stripping out of the Santa costume. And he didn't die of heat stroke or anything. But Bonnie and her kids and grandkids started writing this cute little story about this. And I set it to music and we created the song. And it's kind of Disney Moana a bit. And then we wrote the book and created a book in motion, and it's really fun.
Yeah,
Excuse me. Sorry.
that's great. I
So,
saw
yeah.
that on your website. I was like, "I've gotta ask him about this book."
Yeah. So it came out just this past season. And the good thing about Christmas is it comes around every year.
Yeah, that's a book I need to get my niece. She's 4, I think, sh and she loves
Oh,
books. I'll have
she
to get
will
it for
love
her
it.
for
She'll
this
be
next
perfect. Yeah.
Christmas, in this year in
Yeah.
2026. But, John, this has been fantastic. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you taking the time to share your story because, again, we have such a broad audience of people with different backgrounds and interests, and I just love sharing different. Again, people are doing awesome things like you, but again, there's always things that you struggle with, and it's appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing some of those struggles because I think people resonate with that. Everyone's going through different things, and people are wanting to be great and do
Yeah.
impactful things in their lives, and so it's always refreshing to know, like, "Hey, that person's there, but they went through some stuff too, and I can get through whatever I'm going through." So, I think this is a great conversation, and will have a lot of people it'll create impact.
If I could put in one plug uh, for a free resource that I created just out of this whole thing at johnchisum.com, you can find a link to sign up for a 31-day, call it motivational. It's motivation and devotion kind of put together and really short, little emails. But I find that people are really kind of blessed by that. And because that's what restored me when I was so messed up is really finding some actually beginning to read motivational books again and kind of putting motivation and devotion together I don't know if I should copyright that word motivational. I don't know,
I like.
but that's there at johnchisum.com if anybody would be interested in that.
Yep. And John, we'll make sure that link is posted in the episode on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, everywhere that this gets released. So if anyone's
Thanks,
interested in that,
Chris.
you'll be able to find John's website and we'll make sure that's available. And so, but John, keep doing the good work, man. You're doing awesome things and having an impact and can't wait when your books come out. Like I said, we'll get those spotlighted. So very excited about that. But thanks again, man. This has been awesome.
You're welcome, Chris. You got to come over and see the studio, okay?
Absolutely. I'll be there.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.